Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. So recently the Young Turks called out the New York Times for doing shoddy journalism and not researching a story properly. Let's have a look at a clip.
There's a huge difference between the right wing and the left wing. The right wing wants to destroy the mainstream media and replace it with its own propaganda. We on the left want to improve the media. So we give from time to time a constructive critique of what I think that they're doing wrong. This is one of those instances. John Herman from the New York Times wrote an article that I think was terrible, shoddy journalism. And the reason for that, and the reason why it got printed and the editor signed off on it, and the New York Times was happy to run it, is because the mainstream media has internalized the right-wing propaganda that it is liberal media. So they do not want to cover the left. They do not want to give it credence. But every opportunity they get, they hype up the right.
Now, Jenk may actually be right about the New York Times in this particular case doing shoddy journalism and not looking at all the facts. The link to the full video is below as always. I'll let you watch it and make up your own mind. But the interesting thing here and why I want to make this video is that the Young Turks are just as bad, if not worse. They do shoddy journalism all the fucking time. It is their standard. For example, let's have a look at this video.
Last Friday, a former security guard at a mall in Iowa shot and killed a 20-year-old woman who was working at a kiosk. The woman's name is Andrea Farrington, and unfortunately she did not survive the gun wounds. Now, Alex Kozak has been taken into custody, and he is facing murder charges for the shooting. To give you some more context into the story, he was alleged to sexually harass the 20-year-old woman, and as a result, he was facing termination from his job. And apparently, he thought it would be a great idea to retaliate by shooting this woman in the back several times until she died. Now, that story was devastating in and of itself, but the response to that story, I would argue, is just as devastating because it shows you the lack of humanity we have in this country. Now, there are a number of men's rights activists that are sharing their opinion on this story, and a number of them actually think that, hey, you know what? You can't blame this guy for shooting and killing this 20-year-old woman. She had it coming.
So it was numerous MRAs who were saying this shit about the guy and defending him, right? Well, that's interesting. Now, the link that the Young Turks give in their description is an article from Raw Story. Now, this is standard operating procedure for the Young Turks. What they do is they find an article on Raw Story or BuzzFeed or whatever, and if the article conforms to their preconceived worldview, they don't bother checking citations or doing any research.
You didn't do any research, did you?
Or anything like that, which is, you know, I guess too much of a hassle when doing journalism, right?
New York Times, it's called research. It's called journalism. Look into it.
Now, the Raw Story article claims that the people making the comments were in fact men's rights fanatics. If you follow the citations from the article, you find that the author of the Raw Story article gets his information from David Futrell. Now, the interesting thing is David Futrell nowhere in his article refers to the people making the comments as men's rights activists. You can bet if they were MRAs, David Futrell would gleefully point that out. But nowhere in his article does he refer to MRAs. The comments actually came from a Return of Kings forum, which is a pickup artist forum, and was made by, I think, 2 or 3 people in the forum, and other people were calling them out. So apparently 2, 3, maybe 4 pickup artists expressing an opinion on a pickup artist forum is numerous MRAs, and a big enough story for the Young Turks to do a video on it calling out MRAs.
So, unfortunately, in this one case, this was the definition of fake news.
Great job, guys. Great job. Really, really great journalism. But let's continue.
Let me give you some examples. Now, this is from an MRA forum, and here's what a few of the people on the forum said. One person says, like rape, does the term sexual harassment pretty much no longer have any real meaning? I.e., it's safe to assume there's no chance this guy actually touched her or said anything lewd.
Now, you'll note that the graphic they use even clearly says RooshV forum, right? It's written right there. But apparently that's an MRA forum. Let's continue.
One journalist kind of compiled a number of comments that people were sharing on there, and I'm glad that you pointed out that they're not representative of all MRAs. However, they're the ones who get the most attention because they're batshit crazy. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yeah, and so, and ironically, they would turn around and say similar things about women who accuse people of rape when it didn't happen. So the famous Rolling Stone story in the University of Virginia, etc. And then they become terrible examples for people who are concerned about women's rights and rape. Well, then your red pillars and the guys who are specifically saying this stuff are terrible examples of the MRA movement. And so this is what draws people's attention, and this is what people think represent you. If that's not the case, you got to figure out how to get your message, out in a better way, because this is horrible.
No, this is beyond.
Oh, I get it. So it's our fault that people like the Young Turks can't do research.
Terrible, shoddy journalism.
Believe lies they read in the raw story without checking any facts.
And what does New York Times do? They just take his word for it.
And misrepresent us. That's somehow our fault for not getting our message out, right? It's not the fault of so-called journalists like the Young Turks.
Calls himself Sam So, I guess. He says he wasn't being rude to anyone on his job. Again, total assumptions, not remotely true as far as the facts are concerned from what we know. He wasn't trying to be a pickup artist on the job. Again, don't know that. And shitting where he eats, don't know that. In fact, the facts are counter to that. His prior complaints leading up to his firing are almost certainly trumped-up charges. Total assumption. Made it up. His crime? Being a beta male raised without a father and a domineering mother. Again, I don't know if he has any idea how this guy was raised at all.
Well,
right?
He's probably projecting. Right.
But how could he be a beta male? I'm so confused by what you call beta males. If you're the one not getting laid, aren't you the beta male? No, okay, somehow you're the alpha male.
So the Young Turks once again demonstrate their level of research by claiming that MRAs talk about alpha and beta males and about dating, etc., etc., as opposed to associating these things to the pickup artists like they should. But not only that, but the comment he read actually said pickup artist. So their level of research is so thorough that they don't know the difference between a pickup artist and an MRA.
Believe in the men's rights movement. These guys are cancer. This looks horrible. Okay, so look, I don't hold everybody responsible. I'm not a knuckleheaded conservative who says, okay, one Muslim did a bombing, so all Muslims are at fault, right? But these guys, whoever they are really bad apples. And if it's not the whole orchard, you got to show. I don't know how. I don't know that it's anybody's particular responsibility or anything. Yeah. But you got to show that this isn't the orchard, because if this is the orchard, it's a horrible orchard.
Yeah.
Now, this is incredibly ironic because he claims it's our responsibility to separate ourselves from the bad apples, which is interesting because MRAs and pickup artists are constantly saying that we are not the same group. We do not represent each other. We believe in different things.
According to the media, I run the biggest men's rights site on the internet. So Return of Kings, for the past year, they keep saying that Return of Kings is a men's rights site. I've come out to say it's not. And look, I have criticized men's rights. I've said don't practice it, but they're still doing it.
Yet this is ignored by people like Cenk and the Young Turks because it suits their narrative to put the two groups together and combine them and claim that they're exactly the same.
So, unfortunately, in this one case, this was the definition of fake news.
Now, let's have a look at a more recent story done by the Young Turks.
It's Free Speech Week at Berkeley, which means I will not be going to Berkeley this week. It is a conservative rally that lasts for 4 days starting on Sunday, so plan accordingly. It is, coordinated by the alt-right and, the idea of free speech. I think we'll talk about what they mean when they say it's Free Speech Week, but already this group has come under some problems that have presented themselves around the planning of the event. They have missed some deadlines. So Berkeley Patriot, the student group, missed deadlines that would have given the university police the time they need to set up security for the week. So missing those deadlines, now their events that were supposed to take place inside are going to have to be shifted outside, which bring with them a whole lot of problems and logistical challenges. Also,
classic right wing. First of all, they missed the deadline. I don't know if it's because they're incompetent, because they're right wingers, I mean, look at them run the government. They run it right into the ground, right? Or they miss it on purpose so that there's more controversy. And, my God, we got to go outside where the protesters are more likely to be and cause a mess. Yes, because all they care about is the attention. What brilliant speech are they going to give that's going to change minds at Berkeley, right? They don't care about that. They don't care about the actual speech. They're like, drama.
Of course. Amazing interview on a local TV station around Berkeley. I think it was the CW local affiliate, where they showed all the complaints lodged by the Berkeley Patriot. All those things saying like they won't let us speak. They're making it so difficult. And they literally said they're treating us differently than they have treated literally every student group. And then it cuts right to an interview with the administrator who's in charge of receiving all these documents from them to okay the event. And he's like, yeah, we are treating them differently. We're giving them way more leeway and way more extra time than we give everyone else, just because it's such, and they understand exactly what's going on. And they wisely say, like, we're not going to give them the pushback that they're looking for. And at every point, we'll, respond to their misinformation with all the right kind of information. And it works.
So the university has been nothing but helpful and bending over backwards to try to help this group, and Milo put on the free speech talks. And we know this because someone from the university said so, right? I guess we don't need to look into it any further than that.
And what does New York Times do? They just take his word for it.
Of course, a recent video from the Honey Badgers did talk about a different aspect of this same story, which I guess the Young Turks missed.
However, Free Speech Week was thought to be canceled after news outlets have been reporting on the fact that, apparently it seemed that student groups supposedly failed to submit the quote-unquote necessary payments to secure 2 auditoriums. The university also noted that Berkeley Patriots supposedly only signed the contracts for the venues at the last minute. So, up until recently, actually today, when we're recording this on Monday, September 18th, it seemed that Free Speech Week was going to be canceled because of negligence on behalf of the Berkeley Patriots students group. Well, Milo Yiannopoulos released a video on his YouTube channel today disproving the claims that the student group was at fault. Rather, unsurprisingly, it was the university's fault. Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs at UC Berkeley, Steve Sutton, supposedly has been trying to get Free Speech Week canceled for months. He released a press statement over the weekend saying 2 of the speaking engagements were likely to be canceled due to the supposed ineptitude of the student group. In reality, Berkeley Patriot has been trying to get things settled with the university administration for the past 3 weeks, but their emails and phone calls weren't returned. When the students went to the offices on campus out of frustration for not having their messages returned, apparently, according to Milo, the administrators quote-unquote ran away. Berkeley Patriot and Milo had some questions about the contract details because they didn't want to give away $65,000 without clearing up some legal conundrums. In particular, they wanted to know if they would get the $65,000 back if the events were canceled. And it was only on September 13th, last Wednesday, that Steve Sutton sent the new contract to the group via email. And they had less than 48 hours to get the contract signed and to have the $65,000 ready. No, I'm not kidding. However, naturally, the students still had questions regarding the finances, and those questions weren't answered until roughly 5 hours before the contract deadline. But it gets worse than that. See, Milo's bank is on the East Coast. Therefore, Milo and Berkeley Patriot had only 90 minutes to wire the money to UC Berkeley electronically. Otherwise, the event would have been canceled. After this email was sent as well, just a topper to all this ridiculous nonsense, the university police, under influence from Sutton, withdrew their initial agreement with the student group and proclaimed that they now needed to file 12 separate security applications when originally they only needed one.
I'll include Milo's video after my end credits. I'll let you watch it and make up your own mind who's telling the truth, whether it's Milo or the university administrators. And in case you're curious, Milo's video and the Honey Badger's video was published before the Young Turks video. So it seems that they presented a very one-sided view of the story without taking into account Milo's side of the story, right? I'm guessing they're not even aware of that side of the story because all they did was read an article on Vox. They took the article at its word without doing any research.
Hey, I'll do the research for you. I'll give you the numbers, and you should go ahead and actually do some journalism and verify it for yourself.
Then got outraged and commented on it, which is their standard operating procedure.
Terrible, shoddy journalism.
I should also point out that the Honey Badgers don't have anywhere near the manpower or the finances or the resources at their disposal that the Young Turks do. Yet they were able to do better research and present a different side of the story regardless. But the Young Turks have a bit more to say about Milo. Let's have a look at that.
Last couple of fun things. I like that Charles Murray and some of the other right-wingers were outraged that they were lied about. The right wing lies all the time about the left wing and about everything else, but when all of a sudden you're doing it to each other, they're like, oh, shocked and chagrined. Turns out some people on our side are liars. Okay. Wow. And then remember, this isn't about free speech because CPAC had invited Nemo and said, well, you know, I know that he said all these sexist, bigoted, of course they didn't admit that, but it's super obvious he had, and don't make me list a dozen things he said that's outrageous. Anyway, all those things, but we're fine with it. I mean, we're for freedom of speech. And then they found out that he had done that interview where he seemed to be advocating for child molestation and pedophilia. Not that he did it, but that he was saying like, it's not such a bad thing. And then all of a sudden CPAC disinvited him. Wait, I thought you were for free speech.
Right. Just because you disagree with that idea doesn't mean that you should censor him, right?
Now, it's very interesting that Cenk would bring up the Milo pedophile thing. Let's have a look at the clip that got Milo in such trouble.
Good outside of what he did? Like, was he a good religious scholar? Was he a good teacher?
I think he was just a parish priest. I mean, I
just
really
a fucking creep getting his dick sucked, then.
He's gonna get lynched now.
How's he gonna get lynched? Do people know who he is?
I don't think so.
What's his name?
Well, I'm not saying anymore.
Well, how old were you at the time?
Just
you were a little kid, and he was like what?
You're trying to.
Was he in his 20s or 30s?
Yet another feminist strategy that you have adopted in addition to your language policing.
Trying to out pedophiles?
No, trying to go on this.
You were the one who was anti-pedophile earlier.
I told you it wasn't the pedophilia. I was after I lost my virginity. I was in my teens. I was in my teens.
14.
I was in my teens.
Something
like that.
That's what you said. 14 is pedophilia, buddy. I don't know how they rock it in merry old England.
I was in my teens.
Over here in my country, and fucking where you are right now,
You've
America.
never seen a 15-year-old girl at any point in your life, however old you were, you've never seen a 15-year-old girl you thought was hot.
Yeah, when I was 15.
No, when you were 25. When you were 25.
I'm not retarded, dude.
When you were 25, when you were 30, you will have seen girls about 15 you thought were hot.
No,
of course
I thought they were little kids.
No, you didn't.
I thought, damn, she's gonna be hot, but I didn't want to fuck her.
Bullshit. Like
not bullshit at all.
Look,
you can't tell me what I was born into.
I think if you're 14...
Born like this.
You were born this way. You were born a dreary nitpicker.
No, you're trying to make it so I'm a fucking creeper like you.
No.
I'm not into 14-year-olds. How dare you, sir? No.
I'm not into 14-year-olds.
Well, that
Don't
fucking
put this
guy
on
that
me.
you said's a great guy. He was into 14-year-olds.
Fantastic. It was fantastic.
Yeah, he's a terrible person.
No.
He certainly was.
I was a very mature 14-year-old.
Yeah. Well, in your case, he got it right. You got the right guy to molest.
It wasn't molestation.
That's absolutely molestation.
It wasn't molestation. It was perfectly consensual.
I don't think it is when they're 14.
When I was 14, trust me, I was the predator. I was the predator.
You were the predator. You were chasing after the priest.
The instigator.
He was trying to stay close to God.
I was chasing everybody. I was aggressively seeking out sexual company of adults because I knew it would horrify people. Because I wanted sort of power over them. It was my way of rebelling. My way of rebelling. I was the predator at 14. Let me tell you.
Do you think that's what's going on with that guy who directed X-Men? Bunch of
Bryan Singer.
Yeah, a bunch of 14-year-old predators going after that poor man.
I'm not sure it's the case with him. No.
That's a guy.
You know, I lived in Hollywood a while ago.
Did you?
Briefly. And,
did you go to one of his parties?
I went to other people who I won't name of a similar stature in Hollywood. I went to their boat parties and to their house parties and things, and some of the things I have seen have beggared belief.
Yeah? Can you give us like a...
Well, just... I don't want to be indiscreet about specific people.
Right, you don't have to do that.
It's going
just dance
to be,
around the facts.
Yeah, dangerous. But I can tell you the truth without dropping anyone in it.
Okay.
I mean, some of the boys there were very young. Very young.
And this is really recently?
I don't remember... No, like, I don't know, 8 years ago. I don't remember...
Statute of limitations.
I don't remember... whether I ever met Bryan Singer or whether I even knew who he was then. But I knew other people of similar stature, as I say, and there were some very young boys around at that time. There was a lot of drugs and a lot of...
twinks.
A lot of twinks taking drugs and having unsafe sex with older men, and some of these boys were very young.
What did you think about...
Desperate for a job, you know.
When Andy Cohen, the guy who runs Bravo, had to apologize for the use of the word twink?
Okay, so let's compare that to some of the things that Cenk has said in the past, and the first clip is a story concerning a 15-year-old student who had sex with a 46-year-old teacher and a 36-year-old teacher.
What are the odds, though, that the teachers come on to the students? I mean, I think that that's more likely than the actual students coming on to the teacher.
Well, kids are horn dogs, you know, because, I mean, you saw that lady. You know, I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying, you know, right?
God, that's really scary.
You gotta be a horn dog 15-year-old to go after Miss Bowers over there. Okay? Let alone, I don't know what the 46-year-old looks like, right? But he's, you know, he's 15, he's ready to go. He's packing heat. So, okay, now to all the women out there, I don't know who came on to who in this case, but bring it down for me, okay? Bring it down. Go get guys your own age. Hey, believe me, look, you want the attention, right? 36-year-olds will fuck you too. Okay? Just gotta find the right guy, and if you're willing to be desperate enough to have sex with a 15-year-old, lower your standards for the 36-year-olds. And they'll show you some attention for a while, okay? Just calm down.
And another case involving a 15-year-old student and an adult teacher.
Number 4, what is it? I mean, in like 80% of the cases, when the woman is hitting on the boys, the teacher ain't bad looking. I mean, that's another teacher that if you're in school and you got a lot of disastrous teachers around you, and she's the one that texts you and sends the BJJ, you know, I'm like, all right, well... I mean, I'm sexting back. Okay. No, I'm a bad man. I denounce and reject myself. I'm just telling you what I would have felt at 15 if that's what my teacher is, and then she's, you know, sending me pictures of that. I would be like, whoa! I didn't see that coming, but I can see me coming. No, that's wrong. That's just so wrong. That's wrong. And once again, I denounce and reject myself. Okay. But not bad looking is my point.
She's a decent looking woman, yes.
Yeah, I can live with it. I can live with it. God bless. Go forward. Now, you know what? I got a crazy idea for you. Next time, sex to someone who's above age. Okay? I mean, I don't know. Go to a frat. Get a college guy. Still pretty young, but they're legal.
What about a 28-year-old babysitter and a 14-year-old boy?
Yeah, no. Look, come on. It's the same old thing now. Now, if people are taking it to extreme. We've done a lot of stories of like 49-year-old women with like 11-year-old boys. It's like getting crazy, right? But this is old school. This is how it should be. Like, this is the one where you go, let him go. Let him go.
Really?
Because if I'm a 14-year-old boy and that 20-year-old girl wants to have sex with me, that ain't no rape. That ain't no statutory rape. That's just a good time.
She's almost 30, Cenk. No, I think that the age difference is too big here. No, it's too big here. Of course you're going to rule in favor of yourself.
Let her go! Let her go! Okay, now the flip side is, she has got to calm down.
If you switch the roles here,
In love?
If it's a 28-year-old man and he's sleeping with a 14-year-old girl, let him go?
No.
So why is there that double standard?
There just is.
No, but that's wrong. That's a type of backwards thinking that shouldn't exist.
That's right. And it does. Okay, now here, because men and women are different, okay? They just are. And I think saying that a hot 28-year-old having sex with a 14-year-old boy is a crime, that statement is a crime.
Okay, wait, let me ask you something. What is the difference? Explain the difference to me. Draw it out so I can understand.
Because the boy clearly wants it. You see what I'm saying?
And a 14-year-old girl can't clearly want it. Like, you're basically saying that a 14-year-old girl doesn't have the brain power to figure out what she does and does not want, but a 14-year-old boy does. That's what your claim is.
No, I wouldn't say that, but you're doing a good job of breaking my ass down. I just know instinctually that boys want that, because I was a 14-year-old boy. I know it. Now, if you tell me you're a 14-year-old girl and you want to make the argument that 14-year-old girls should be allowed to do whatever they want, I don't know. I wasn't a 14-year-old girl, but I have trouble with that argument. If you tell me I have a double standard and I'm not being logical, I hear you on that. But my gut says, man, it's just, you gotta you can't put her in jail. In jail? Yeah, again, if she was a teacher, you could fire her. You know, maybe the judge says, bad girl, what's the matter with you? Get out of here. Okay, but put her in jail, I can't do it. But if it's a skeevy guy with a 14-year-old girl, yeah, I can do that. I can put him in jail.
I think a 28-year-old woman could be skeevy for dating a 14-year-old boy. I don't think that the circumstances are different.
No, it's a split decision here, obviously. JR, you're on.
What about a 13-year-old, Jenk? Can you tell us your opinion about that?
Look, the thing is, this is obviously a topic we need to discuss a little further, right? Mm-hmm. So, first of all, let's all get on the record that Christy Sanchez Trujillo, Trujillo is totally hot. Okay, do you agree to that?
She's an attractive woman. I do agree to that.
Okay, so we have agreement on that note.
Based on that blurry picture, we don't know what she really looks like. But anyway, go ahead.
Now, number two, I am going to submit to the court that is relevant. Okay, now, that's outrageous, outrageous. First of all, the problem here is the kid's 13. That's way, 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 way too young, right? If the kid was 17, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, let her go, let her go. Fire her. As always, I'm always on the record on that. You can't be having sex with your students. Obviously, you get fired over that, right? But prison, rape, okay. Now, but it's so young, but she's so hot. You see my point?
No.
Oh, I get it. So, statutory rape should be judged on how hot the rapist is. Is that right, Jenk? Continue.
Now, look. I have no real point. I have no legal point. I concede that, Justice Kasparian.
Okay.
Right? But nonetheless, I would like to beseech the jury on something. Beseech the jury. All right. For 99% of human history, if a woman of that attractiveness came to a 13-year-old boy who had gone past puberty, okay, and offered sexual relations to him, that would have been considered what they called back in the day FTW, for the win.
Okay.
Okay. Now, but now in this 1% of history, we view that as horrific, right? So, and I get why, and I get that it's illegal, and I get that 13 is way too young in the context of our times, and why that makes sense. But do you see how I'm torn a little bit on that?
You're under the assumption that this 13-year-old boy has gone through adolescence.
I mean, they culminated, I guess. I mean, I'm saying the act. I'm not saying what happened in the act. I have no idea. But they apparently had some relations, is what I'm saying. So, you would think. But maybe not. Maybe you're right. I don't know. And then it's tough to say, okay, the cutoff is puberty or not. Look, since he's 13, she's got to go to jail. I get that. I'm not making that argument. It's just, I guess, the idea that she raped him, again, is something. And then, so what? She goes away for 20 years, 25 years? We're really going to put her in jail for 25 years?
Look, this is the way I measure it. And it's really difficult for society to do it because they are a lot more lenient on women when it comes to this issue. I think about what the consequences would be if the tables were turned. If it was a male teacher, regardless of how attractive he is, he would be charged with rape.
Yeah, we wouldn't even be having a conversation about whether the guy's attractive or not.
We would have no conversation about it. His attractiveness would be irrelevant. And
by the way, don't get me wrong. I know I'm crazy, but I'm not stupid. I get that her attractiveness obviously should not be relevant, okay? In a court of law, you don't go, but, Your Honor, my client is hot, okay? And so the student must have, been into it a little bit at least. You see what I'm saying, Your Honor? You see what I'm saying? No, you don't get to make a case like that. But we're having a conversation here. We're talking. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and if the tables were turned, you could make the case that a young 13-year-old girl wanted to have sex with a 30-year-old man. Right, or a 30-year-old teacher.
Yeah,
who's
I feel
attractive.
uncomfortable making that case.
Yeah, of course. We feel uncomfortable because for some reason we're okay with sheltering the hell out of young women or young girls. But when it comes to boys, it's like, well, good job. He wanted it. He wanted that teacher.
You're right. The double standard.
So a 13-year-old boy, hold on, let me just say. So a 13-year-old boy is able to choose whether or not he could have sex with an attractive person, but a 13-year-old girl can't. Right? You can't make those comparisons. So
look, I don't know about her. I know that I am guilty as charged. Okay, I have a double standard. We've talked about it a lot, and it's unacceptable. But nonetheless, it exists, and that's what spurs this conversation. I think that on a basis of law, logic, you're going to win most of the time on this conversation. But I'm telling you what a lot of guys think, because I was a 13-year-old boy, and if Kristen Sanchez Trujillo
you're the worst.
came to me and said, "Hey, how you doing?" I'd have definitely said back, "How you doing?" Okay, and then that would not, in my mind at that time, would not have been rape. Okay, now I might have been wrong, but that's not how I would have saw it. J.R. Jackson / Lenny Kravitz.
So which one is more important to change, the skewed idea of society or the law?
Skewed idea of society. I think. You can't have 33-year-old teachers having sex with 13-year-old students. I don't care. I don't care if it's a female. I don't care if it's a male. I don't care.
I agree with you.
I don't care if the student...
I agree with you. But right. Look. That's clear. 13 is way too young. So we're not having that conversation. Do you think she goes away for rape for 20, 25 years?
No, that's ridiculous. 20, 25 years is
But
ridiculous.
if it's a guy, we wouldn't think that's ridiculous at all.
Well, even for a guy, if it was consensual between the 13-year-old girl and the 30-year-old teacher, all right, he shouldn't be put away for 25 years. Neither should the teacher if she's a female, okay? It's just not right. As long as there's solid proof and evidence that it was, in fact, consensual.
So you're considering statutory rape to be different than, non-consenting rape?
Yes. Okay.
And you think that they should have different...
Yes,
that they should both be punished, but be punished
differently.
For different...
Yes, because...
That's a fair argument.
Because raping someone or having sex with someone against their will is completely different from having sex with someone who is consenting to it. I know that society thinks 13-year-olds aren't old enough to make that decision, and you know what? That's a very, very good argument, but it's still very different. There's violent rape, there's consensual rape, sex.
Sex, right.
But Cenk understands the motivation of the female pedophile. He has a very good understanding of why they do what they do. Let's have a little listen to that.
No. Now you're scarring these kids. 13-year-old, man. Check yourself. No, but the thing is, I figured out why, right? And why it's become such a phenomenon. Because some women, they want the undivided attention. Like, I know why guys do it. Look, guys do it more often, right? And guys are mental about it because it's about the sex and the power and all that stuff. So that part is obvious, right? But for women, it's not quite as obvious because you're like, they really need the sex that bad, they could go to a 13-year-old? No. So they love the undivided attention. They get a little boy, and he gets infatuated with her, and she thinks, oh, and little boys, they fall in love unconditionally.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's not like they're like grown men who are like, yeah, if you pass this test and you're not too much of a pain in the ass, and la. The boy's like, oh my God, Miss whatever, Miss McCollum, oh, I love you, and she eats that up because she's a little unbalanced. And there's a lot of women like that. They want that, and they're like, yeah. And so that's why when he starts talking to other girls, she's like, give me that cell phone. You're supposed to give me undivided attention. That's what this is about. Man, that spooks me out, man.
I actually agree with you. That makes complete sense. Because you're not going to get undivided attention with an older man. He's got his own career to deal with. Everyone's busy. There's just no time. But with a young boy, what is he going to do? He goes to school. He sees you there anyway. And then after school, what does he do? He gets a little lesson.
Well, that made it sound fun. But you're right. A, he doesn't have anything else to do. B, he doesn't know the world. That's why it's so wrong, because he hasn't mentally matured enough.
Right.
And C, he's so damn happy he's getting sex just because it's natural that, that a 13-year-old boy is going through puberty, wants sex, right?
that he's like, oh, I love her. You know, I notice with younger kids, which I've forgotten because I haven't been young so long, you know, that young, that they get obsessed really quickly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And they're very emotional, obviously, and that's why it's so damn wrong. And
in this case, she's a 6th grade teacher. So it's an elementary school where the oldest students are like 11 or 12. So this kid is either, in the best case scenario, is either 11 or 12. He could be younger than that.
No, and it's really, really pathetic, right? Other than the fact that it's criminal and terrible and all the other things, right? But it's pathetic because it's a cry for somebody give me unadulterated love, right? And attention, right? If you're an adult, well, you've got other priorities and it's hard for me to get all of your love and attention. But if I find, and I can't even get it from a 16-year-old, I mean, honestly, of course, she worked there, so she preyed on the people that were there, right? She didn't work in high school, she worked in elementary school. But certainly a part of it is, well, here's a kid who I can manipulate, who will give me everything that I want and adore me, etc., because they don't know better. And that's why they do it.
So her lawyer says that she has been diagnosed with a mental illness. So he's blaming it on a mental illness, and I guess that's what her defense will be. I want to tell you what her charges were. She's been charged with 1 count of a lewd act upon a child, 1 count of oral, basically oral sex with a person under the age of 14, 3 counts of genital penetration by a foreign object with a person under 14 years of age, and when the suspect is more than 10 years older than the victim.
Oh, I get it. So pedophiles aren't attracted to young children. They're just looking for a bit of attention. Is that right, Jenk? Oh, hold on. You're only talking about female pedophiles. It's entirely different for male pedophiles, right? That's an entirely different standard you have there. And it's because of attitudes like this that we don't take female sex offenders seriously. How very progressive of you, Jenk. If you want to talk about a fucking rape culture in our society, this is it right here. And for the record, I disagree with both Jenk and Milo. Now, I will admit that there are 15-year-olds who are mature enough to have sex with older people and not have any lifelong consequences. In some cases, it may even be a positive experience. But that does not mean that every 15-year-old who thinks that he or she is mature enough is mature enough. And in many cases, it will be a negative experience. And just because the 15-year-old, be they male or female, wants to sleep with an older person doesn't make it okay. And it's the responsibility of that older person, especially if they're in a position of authority like a teacher, a babysitter, or a priest, like we saw in the examples. It is the responsibility of that older person not to take advantage of the younger person, even if that younger person actively seeks out the sex. Now, I do realise it's not a black and white situation. I do realise that teenagers mature at a different rate, and I know there will be people who will say that there are 15-year-olds who are mature enough to make that choice and not have consequences. I get that. But we need a standard to protect those who aren't. And saying, well, you know, he was just a horny teenager and he wanted it, is not an excuse for the behaviour of the adult. What I do find interesting about this whole thing with Milo, though, is I don't recall anyone who called him out over the whole pedophile thing commenting on Jenk from the Young Turks. It's an interesting double standard. I think the things that Jenk said are just as bad as what Milo said, if not worse, because he said them over a longer period of time, numerous times, whereas, as far as I know, Milo said them once in one interview. Yet the progressive left are totally silent when it comes to Jenk and the Young Turks. It's amazing there haven't been articles in The Guardian or Huffington Post or, you know, all those other places which put out articles about Milo. They're totally silent when it comes to someone like Jenk from the Young Turks. It's a very interesting double standard we have here.
Terrible, shoddy journalism.
Hello. If you've been reading the press over the weekend, you might have been misled into believing that Berkeley Free Speech Week is in a bit of bother. I'm here to set the record straight. UC Berkeley has been racking its brains for months trying to work out how to cancel Free Speech Week. They do not want us on campus. The administrators at UC Berkeley have tried everything to derail Free Speech Week, up to and including accusing the students of being inept. They're not. Here's what's really happening. Violent leftist thugs burnt down the UC Berkeley campus the last time I attempted to speak there. So they're right to fear the thugs who'll do anything to stop Milo, Anne, and Uncle Steve from holding a microphone on campus. Leading this coordinated bureaucratic mission to silence conservative voices at Berkeley is the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Steve Sutton, who, it shouldn't surprise anyone, lists his preferred pronouns in his email signature. Another bad dude on the Berkeley campus is Assistant Vice Chancellor for Public Affairs, Dan... is it Mogulov? Mogilov. Steve Sutton released a press statement over the weekend saying that 2 of Free Speech Week's headline events are now cancelled because the student group hosting us, the Berkeley Patriot, failed to file the paperwork on time. Well, that isn't true. For well over 3 weeks, the student group hosting Free Speech Week, the Berkeley Patriot, has been stonewalled, ignored and sidelined by the Berkeley administration, which has consistently refused to answer questions and even return phone calls. When students, sick of being ignored, physically went to the offices on campus, they were told administrators had run away. My company, Milo Inc., working with the Berkeley Patriots, has all permits, permissions and venues reserved. We simply had questions regarding the contract details before blindly giving Berkeley $65,000. Among these questions was, we wanted to know if we'd get our $65,000 back if Berkeley cancelled the event. After endless attempts spanning 3 weeks, Steve Sutton's office has refused to respond to us. On Wednesday, September 13th, his office finally sent a new contract to the Berkeley Patriot with the deadline to be signed and delivered with $65,000 in fees by Friday, September 15th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Since August 25th, we've been working in good faith with Sutton's office, and the September the 15th deadline came from nowhere and was completely arbitrary. The contract sent Wednesday last week was identical to the old one. Our questions about refunds and other issues had not been addressed. The Berkeley Patriot asked Sutton's office if this was a mistake. In fact, between Wednesday and Friday afternoon of last week, members of the Berkeley Patriot inquired on 19 separate occasions in calls and emails that were not returned. During that time, the university police, under influence from Sutton, rescinded an agreement with the Berkeley Patriot and informed the students they suddenly needed to file 12 separate security applications, when they previously assured the students that they only needed 1. The university's insurance company then suddenly let the students know that this event would not be covered. Meanwhile, as administrators at Berkeley were not returning calls to us last week, they were returning calls to somebody else, the Los Angeles Times. In a story published at 12:30 Pacific Standard Time on Friday, September 15th, the exact moment, according to emails, that Sutton's office finally responded to the Berkeley Patriot about the contract, the LA Times published a story quoting administrators saying the group hadn't filed their paperwork and that the event was probably not going to happen. And what did the office have to say to us? Nothing, except that the contract was accurate and they would not be answering any further questions. Because our bank is on the East Coast, which UC Berkeley of course knows, this gave me and the Berkeley Patriot exactly 90 minutes to assess, review, sign and transfer $65,000 to the university in order to secure Zellerbach Hall and Wheeler Hall for our events. Despite the massive risk and repeated stonewalling from the administration at Berkeley, we did return the paperwork signed on time. By then, of course, the banks were closed on the East Coast and money would be sitting in limbo until Monday morning. This was designed to force a cancellation. We are not going to cancel Free Speech Week. I'm not going to allow these slippery, bureaucratic tactics to derail an event that we've been planning for months and which is going to end up costing almost $250,000. UC Berkeley waited until after a speech by establishment-friendly conservative Ben Shapiro to respond to the Berkeley Patriot and to us. They're trying to pretend to you that they're viewpoint neutral, but it obviously isn't true. Nobody riots when Ben Shapiro speaks, but they do when I show up. They will for Ann Coulter, and I'm pretty sure they also will for Steve Bannon when he shows up at Berkeley later this month. We didn't get the assurances we were looking for, but as an act of good faith, this morning, I wired UC Berkeley $65,000. Actually, to be precise, I wired them $65,758.76.
Once again, UC Berkeley is attempting to stop free speech.
They've refused to respond to our emails in a timely manner. They don't meet with us in person. They dodge our attempts to discuss the event.
In recent media, UC Berkeley has lied, saying that we haven't met our deadlines. This could be more than false. It'd be easier to meet those deadlines if UC Berkeley, say, responded to their emails.
They've been trying to do everything that they can to prevent this from happening in a very bureaucratic way.
We have done our best to reach out to the university, but they keep dodging our attempts.
They've been unresponsive to emails. They refuse to meet with us. We couldn't get in touch with the proper people to discuss certain things like the venue fees or the contracts.
This is clearly a tactic of bureaucratic stonewalling, which they've done before.
They don't want this event to happen, but they can't cancel it outright. They need for it to look like it was our fault, our own failures, which is not the case. We've been replying within minutes to every single email they've sent, and we've gotten everything in on the right times and the right dates.
And they're telling the press that the Patriot wasn't following the protocol when we were.
We hope the university realizes that the Berkeley Patriot has been nothing but cooperative and flexible while trying to host this event.
They leaked to the press that Steve Bannon will be speaking at Berkeley. This is a big problem because Bannon is someone who's likely to draw more attention from Antifa, which increases our risk. They didn't have permission to do that.
They didn't include specific key clauses that we needed to protect ourselves as students in case something went wrong.
UC Berkeley, if you truly care about your students, you would stop blaming the conservatives and you would start, say, I don't know, telling the police to do their job, putting Antifa in jail.
UC Berkeley's conservative students feel totally betrayed by their university. And so do I. They're asking today, and I'm asking today, UC Berkeley, please rediscover your commitment to free speech, rediscover your commitment to the First Amendment, and help us stage a successful Free Speech Week.
Terrible, shoddy journalism.